Hey, welcome to Daily Stoic Time, where we are going to talk about philosophy.
Hello. Welcome.
And our philosophy is broken up day by day. So today we have a very special entry from the Daily Stoic, and it is called the Straitjacketed Soul.
Straitjacketed Soul.
Yes.
That's interesting. The 48 Laws of Power book
Yeah.
that we were listening to today was talking about Houdini and the straitjackets and how he was like getting out of straitjackets.
That's right.
So that like reminded me of like straitjacket could be something like really crazy. Like you can't get out of it, but then it's also you can figure it out how to get out. Somehow.
There are tricks.
There are tricks. Okay. I don't know if this is related to any of this, but let's see. I'm sure it's just a metaphor.
Okay, Seneca has a quote for us today. The diseases of the rational soul are long-standing and hardened vices, such as greed and ambition. They've put the soul in a straitjacket and have begun to be permanent evils inside it. To put it briefly, this sickness is an unrelenting distortion of judgment. So things that are only mildly desirable are vigorously sought after. I did not know that straitjackets existed when Seneca was around.
Oh, that's interesting.
He uses that word, straitjacket. They've put the soul in a straitjacket.
I would not think that they had straitjackets then. When was he? Do you know?
Here's where I must confess I don't, but it would probably be wise for me to know. So let's make that an action item.
Very cool. I'm putting him into like not BC maybe BC-ish like old Rome type
or one of the earlier ones,
or something. But he wasn't he Greek though? I don't know. Good questions. This is how educated we are on the actual people who are we reading. But that's okay. That's actually not that relevant. This is more relevant. But
well, let's try to figure out what he's talking about, because so he's saying the diseases of the rational soul. I think rational soul, he just means like every soul has the potential to be rational.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it can have some diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be like these long-standing and hardened vices, like these things that always seem to get us, like they always seem to get a grip on us somehow.
Or like if you're like stuck in your like you have a opinion and you're stuck in that opinion and you can't see anything else or something like that's like a
right. Yeah. So similar to that is he's naming them outrightly, and he's saying. Well, he's saying such as, so this is some but not all. Examples being greed and ambition. So maybe you can help me unpack that so I understand what that actually means. When I think of greed, I think of desiring more than I need.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean that is probably closer to the definition there, because I was kind of thinking of greed as maybe not necessarily that you want to, but yeah, it's essentially anything you don't need and want, which is. Then we are all extremely greedy. Right?
Well, yeah, because I think it's the same mechanism inside of us that wants the things we do need. So then we need to make a clear distinction. And that's where it's difficult, because it's for each one of us on our own to do the investigation and then say, this is needed and this isn't. This is needed and this isn't. This is needed and this isn't. And that might change also over the course of our lives. So it's not like a one-time exercise where we can identify, here's what I should want because it's within the scope of my needs, and here's everything I shouldn't really be aiming for because it's falling outside of the scope of that.
It made me think of Robert Greene, about what he was saying about like how we all would say about ourselves, if asked, if we're greedy, we would say, no, I'm not greedy. Like that's what we all want to say.
But he was saying it about like narcissists or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Or like, hey, are you a narcissist? Like,
and everyone would say no.
But we are narcissists, and we are greedy, and maybe it's okay to be greedy, but knowing that you're being greedy is probably a good way of knowing how to not come out of those. Like, don't be too greedy, right? Like, because if you're monitoring it, if you're looking at it, if you're thinking about it, then automatically you will be in check of your greed. And maybe you'll say to yourself, like, hey, I want to be greedy in this moment. Okay, that's good. But you knowing that you're being greedy, right? So that's great.
Yeah.
Because you might want to say like, oh, I want to be greedy because I deserve it, right? For example. And it feels good.
Well, and then the deserve. I wonder if this is a good segue to his second thing, which is ambition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because with ambition, like if you were in a position to say, I want more than I need because I can deserve it. Well, what situation are you in that you deserve all of this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a situation that you got into because of your ambition.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's how it's kind of connected for me. And it's actually the greed part of this I'm a little bit more at ease with. Like I can see clearly that the thing that is greedy in us is a normal, natural thing. Mm-hmm. It's a mechanism that keeps us alive.
Very natural.
It keeps us alive.
Keeps us alive.
So check it. So like check that mechanism. Mm-hmm. Make sure that it's not, you're not revving your engine up to 10,000 or something like that.
Don't be going to harm people because of greed. Or something, right? And physically then, or financially or some other way, emotionally. But keep it in check. But it's okay to have it. It's actually vital to have it.
Right. Yeah. Like we all already have it. So there's no use in saying it's bad or something like that. It's the ambitious part of this that is interesting. And I'm it seems to me like maybe it's the same thing, like check the ambition, like the part of you that wants to go out and contribute and like change the world for the better. Which I think underlies maybe everybody's ambitions, even if that turns into different things for every one of us. That I can't look at as a mechanism and say that's a bad mechanism.
Right.
So I wonder if ambition here is also in the same way, where it's like a certain amount of it is useful and necessary, but then there's some sort of threshold that now instead of you sort of being the master of your greed and the master of your ambition, the tables turn. Mm-hmm. And your greed and your ambition are now in control of you, and they're like pulling you along. Mm-hmm. And that I think is what he's warning about as like that's the straitjacket.
Yeah. Because it seems like it's always a balance, right? Like don't let it, not having any is bad. Have too much is bad. So it has to be somewhere in that balance. Another balance lesson. I have heard so many of these balance lessons throughout the life, like the balance of like, hey, it's too much or it's too little. it needs to be somewhere here. And a lot of times when we're starting, we're not starting here. We're starting down here or we're starting up there, and then we need to kind of learn all of the size of it to even know where some sort of a middle actually is. It's yeah.
Well,
it's
balance.
deep.
Yeah, balance. I think is a deep skill, and it comes from understanding what those highs are like, what the lows are like, what consequences the highs and lows produce in your life. Because like I was the same way in terms of like just being a kid who just wanted to be myself and have like sort of unfiltered self-expression 100% of the time. But that didn't work for me because I was up and down, and the world told me that it didn't work for me in how my outcomes were, basically. And
so you needed to like adjust in order for it to not be so high up.
Yeah.
So
I mean, in some way, I feel like that's even what is happening with this book and why I'm reading this book right now. And I'm going through the exercise of like filming it on camera and making sure that I fully understand it. Like, because this gives me the accountability for like actually getting the material. And like, this is all part of that pursuit of like, hey, don't let your greed get out of control. Don't let your ambition get out of control. He didn't list all the vices here, but there's like a list of these vices. Don't let your lust, your gluttony, your sloth, basically like those 7 deadly sins is what I'm imagining here as these vices. And so this is all part of it of like, get out of your straitjacket, bring it more into balance.
More into balance, because when we say control that sometimes might mean get rid of it, minimize it completely down, but no, what it means is bring it to balance. It's good to have all of those things. They're like skills or something. You have them, you can't get rid of them, they're in there, right? So then let's learn how to like use them and to not use them, but how to the word control is really bring balance, like equals balance, control equals balance, not control equals get rid of it.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing them all as like important mechanisms. All of the vices are important mechanisms that actually help us survive. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them. So it's not a matter of getting rid of them. It's knowing like how to control them and bring them into balance, as you're talking about. And how to really like the kind of finessing that art a little bit of knowing at what level these things are useful to us and in which situations, so that maybe we can use it to our advantage in a way where we're getting more positive outcomes and not negative.
There's something else about the waves when you were talking about the waves. Like, it's kind of the same thing, like not trying to get rid of the waves. If you're thinking about it that way, like, like it's up and down, right? Or something.
Right.
Like, it's not about getting rid of them, but almost like, or even trying to minimize them. It's maybe like trying to understand that they exist, and then how do I go through those scenarios when it's so deep or when it's so like this, Like, how do I approach myself during those? And naturally, if you're just thinking about those things, like how to go through it, you're not trying to get rid of those waves. You're trying to ride them with confidence or with some sort of like know-how or something, right? Anyway, that was just the waves, like not trying to get rid of them, but learn how to ride them.
I know what you're saying. The trouble is like I never feel like I'm in a wave. Like as we're having this conversation right now, I'm sort of like creating an image for like a whole series of like memories and events and stuff that I'm applying afterwards. But like in the moment, I'm not I'm not aware necessarily that I'm in some sort of wave-like thing or something like that. And so I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree with it too.
It's like a retrospectively easier to talk about than when you're going through.
Right, because essentially what it means to me is like, okay, I have to just be with myself in every single moment of my life and be observant and mindful and aware of what is going on in my point of view, what I'm telling myself about what's going on in a situation, what I'm telling myself about what my motivations are of how I'm being in a situation, and developing the skill, which I think will be a natural thing that happens over time if you are the type of person who wants to get better day over day. But I see it more as like this sort of natural thing that is already happening, as opposed to like, let me go try to ride a wave or something like that.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I squeezed out everything that's there, I think. Nothing else coming up. Ryan, let's see what what's his 2 cents.
Here's Ryan Holiday's commentary. In the financial disaster of the late 2000s, hundreds of smart, rational people lost trillions of dollars worth of wealth. How could such smart people have been so foolish? These people knew the system, knew how the markets were supposed to work, and had managed billions, if not trillions of dollars. And yet, almost to a person, they were wrong, and wrong to the tune of global market havoc. It's not hard to look at that situation and understand that greed was some part of the problem. Greed was what led people to create complex markets that no one understood in the hope of making a quick buck. Greed caused other people to make trades on strange pools of debt. Greed prevented anyone from calling out the situation for what it was, a house of cards just waiting for the slightest breeze to knock it all down. It doesn't do you much good to criticize those folks after the fact. It's better to look at how greed and vices might be having a similar effect in your own life. What lapses in judgment might your vices be causing you? What sicknesses might you have? And how can your rational mind step in and regulate them?
Yeah, that's definitely that's hitting home over there for sure, because it's like a boom and bust type of a thing, right? Like people go through that, or like they invest into something and then they're just like, oh my god, I'll put all my savings into this, and then pop, see ya. There's it becomes almost nothing, right? And so why did they got into it? Because they were thinking that was a great idea. But behind that was greed. And it's like it's so hard to see or greed when you see an opportunity. Because you see an opportunity like, hey, there's this thing I can invest into, right? Oh my God, that's, everybody's doing it, like, I don't know, whatever, like cryptocurrencies or something, whatever, right? Like, oh, everybody's like, oh, like, I'm gonna get into this, and you might feel like I'm part of this group. You might feel this, like, all of these different emotions. I'm part of a group. I believe an idea why I'm doing it, right? So you have all of this stuff, like justifying why you want to invest this money, but ultimately it's all underlined with greed, because you want to make more money. And you want to do it quick.
But is wanting to make more money greedy? Like, why is Ryan Holiday producing a book every year? Is it not to make more money? Is it not for ambition? Because this is where I get caught up with all of this stuff. It's like there's no clear line in the sand between like I'm taking care of my family, I'm
Right.
looking out for my future. I think there was a lot of people in this example that he gave of like that stock, the whole market thing, where they were honest people who
Honest
actually
people,
were
yes.
trying to, in their minds,
Just better themselves.
but in their minds, they were just trying to get their needs met.
Sure.
This wasn't a situation of, I need more than $1 billion. I need $2 billion.
Yeah, but greed is not measured based on money.
Right.
Or even value, right? Like it could be really just, well, ultimately I really feel like greed is just wanting something. It's just wanting.
But then if you say wanting, period, wanting, I wake up in the morning, I want a glass of water. I want to eat food.
But someone might say you need a glass of water. And
right.
You need
but
food.
But it feels internally to me, the desire with which I want food and want water is the same desire with which I want new clothes or I want a car. That want, that feeling of want inside is indistinguishable. This is what I'm saying. It is the same mechanism. Someone prove me wrong. Someone tell me I'm wrong about this. I really think that it is the same exact mechanism. And there is a certain point in where it becomes problematic. And we don't necessarily know what that point is. And now I agree with what Seneca's saying, what Ryan's saying. And I always run into the issue of how? Oh, crickets. Like, how? Because in order to answer how, we have to understand where does it stop being providing for my needs and it starts being greed.
Right. And I think this is different for different people. I don't think that there is like a line that's saying where that line is, right? But ultimately, like you look around, right? And it's like, well, is it greedy to wanting a car? Well, no, because that's part of our society. This is where we were born into.
Right.
Going on vacation is not greedy because we all are doing it. This is how we take breaks, right? So it's like it's almost like a need. There's a little bit underlying need.
So
do we need $10 billion?
Right. These are obvious examples, though. And in the example you just gave about the car, of like, well, yeah, because of this and because of this and because of this. Okay, well, here comes that same justification, that same cycle of justification that our friend who lost everything in the market crash 10 years ago had the same justifications of, oh, well, like, this is good, these people got their returns, like, this is good over here. Like, they were going through the same mental calculation, and they came on the other side of the equation, and they were like, this is a smart idea. And I'm not trying to be greedy here. I'm not trying to be, so in that case, is this a different, like, there were maybe also people who lost everything in that thing that weren't part of this group that Ryan's talking about? They weren't in it for greed?
No, they were in it for greed.
So how do you know? Like, how do you know that that's greedy, but wanting a car isn't? Because you went through the same cycle of justification for both of them. So I'm like, I can't justify my way into thinking that I'm not being greedy because I'm really good at deceiving myself. I will find a way to justify it. And this is probably why we're all greedy bastards out here, and our greed is going unchecked because we're good at deceiving ourselves, and we convince ourselves that we need things we don't need.
I think that greed can be maybe... If we need to, like, that's very complicated, right? And it's like and then now we're gonna run into like, well, different people and different scenarios, and it's going to be that line of where greed begins and ends is very fluid in there, right? So, but like, can we look at it as like maybe like, hey, I want to simplify this, right? So how would I simplify this whole thing? Like, could we say like, access close to greed? Like if you're doing something in excess, like
excess, yeah. Okay.
Excess, yeah, sure.
again, that's so crazy to me because I think of like somebody who has like a life, let's say you have a life savings during this last financial market and you're like, this life savings will get me 10 years, but I might live 15. I could leave it where it's at, but I'm risking that I'm not going to have enough. And what if I live more than 15 years? What if I live 20? So now it's not a feeling of excess. It's not that. It's not greed. It's like literally you saying like, I'm doing the calculations on this. This looks like it might be a good deal for me. Let me put my money here.
And then
you lose it all.
You lose it all. Yeah. Right. So, well, then
was that an example of greed or excess in your book?
There is definitely somewhat greed in there in a way that I want to make more money with this money, right? So what's wrong with it? Well, nothing. That's okay. But now maybe where the mistakes were made is with the risk analysis, right? So it's now like, okay, how is it that you lost it all, right? Well, you must have gone into something crazy risky, right? Because if you go into something like gold, you're not going to lose it all. You're going to lose 10% and then you're going to be like, oh my God, I got to get out because this is an issue, right? But if you go into something and now all of a sudden the next day you have nothing from it, that means you are way over leveraged. You are way too much in with everything and now and into a risky thing that you're not realizing. So it's a combination of not thinking about it or not having the knowledge, but wanting really, really badly make a lot of money right away. That altogether, I call that excess.
Okay.
But so, there is also stupidity involved. There is also not maybe stupidity in the way like, I'll risk it. There's like a gambling in there as well. Like maybe I know some things. But I don't know these other things, so I'm gonna roll the dice, and now I'm losing my pants. So you rolled dice with your entire portfolio. That's going to be a hurtful thing. Now, I have 10 years of money, but I have 15 years to live. Well, okay, so what is that? What do I need? Well, I need 50%, right? More, right? So how do I, in this 10 years, how can I make enough money with that money that will make me live that another 5? I don't need to double this. So then if I don't need to double this, then I can go into much less riskier thing. And now maybe I don't put the entire thing. Maybe I'll just put half and see how it's going. And I'm constantly observing it and working with my financial advisor to get me to that place where I need to be. And now you're moving smarter through it. Could you still lose something? Sure. Could you still lose it all? Sure. But if you lose that all there, we are all
it'll be more gradual. Yeah.
It will be more gradual. You can cover right. So when I hear these stories like, oh my God, I put all my money into this and I lost it all. Well, all of your money, I put it all into this one thing, and then that one thing was extremely risky. How do I know? Because you lost it like this.
Right.
That's how risky it was.
Okay, so
there was no analysis of risk there, and therefore, I'm sorry that it happened to you. Hope you learn. Hope you rebuild your portfolio with something and continue to thrive with this new knowledge. Otherwise, you're making those same mistakes.
So you can have then greedy behavior that's not coming from a place of like wanting more than your needs, potentially. You could be demonstrating needy behavior or greedy behavior just trying to get your needs met. And you might even put like people like con artists or scammers into that bucket of people where like the greed mechanism inside of them has them like trying to obtain their needs by weird means, by strange means. Because that's what I'm getting essentially from this example that we're talking about, is that my fellow, he's not in a place where like he's this billionaire. He's like he's not even in a place where he's trying to get more than what he needs. He just wants to get his needs met. but the way that he's going about doing it,
Is
he's overlooking certain key things.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually maybe even trying to control outcomes
Mm-hmm.
because he's putting everything into something, and he's sort of, it's this wishful thinking, this wish that now is maybe plaguing you. Like this wish now has control over you because you're like, I wish to double my money, or like whatever this thing is that made you go all in is this outcome-based wish, and now this wish has control over you, and this wish is actually maybe the straitjacket that Seneca is talking about.
Yeah.
So then I take back my first definition of like greed is where like your needs are, and I'm now like thinking about it in a totally different way where it's still coming from that mechanism of wanting, but it's a wanting that's trying to like manipulate and control an outcome somehow.
Yeah. And then you could also, and then you say, well, how? You said, how? Nobody tells me how. Like, here's a theory, right? Like what you could do. I'm not saying this is what to do, but as your needs are met, people who are successful and have like crazy money, who look to us poor people as they're greedy, they shifted their mindset when they, and maybe it wasn't exactly on that line of when their needs are met, but at some point right after that, they had to shift from I want more money, I want more money, I want more money. That doesn't work. So they shifted into I want to go make this business deal.
Right. Yeah.
I want to go play this music and make something, right? Like make some music. I want to go do whatever.
I want to work on this problem.
I
want to contribute to this part of the world or something.
Right. And so now it shifts I want money. When you don't have your needs met, you go like, I need money to get to this thing.
And it's this weird thing of I need money.
Most of the time, I understand that there are other needs that money won't fill, but those basic needs that you're like house and car and food, kids can go to school, right? So all of that, once that's met, right? That all of is filled with money. I need money. And then you look at from that bubble, you look outside. And you see rich people and you say, these greedy bastards, right? But all they did is like once they moved out of that bubble, they said, I can't chase money. It's just a bunch of papers. Like, yeah, they're worth more, but I can't be like go swim in them or something. Like what is this, just a number? Like this is meaningless. So there has to be meaning. So after that bubble, they have to shift and say, I understand this now. I have to have a different meaning. What am I in? I want to get this business. I want to grow this into a company with 25, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And then, so it's then it becomes maybe then it shifts into maybe a little more power wanting or some sort of a thing, right? Because like, why would you want to build a company into that? Well, because then I am I'm leaving legacy, right? So there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, I'm leaving legacy, I'm doing all of that stuff, but you start being interested in other things than money. And money is the side effect of what you do. And if like, hey, this is all of a sudden successful, then you have a pile of money. And you look like as a greedy bastard for everyone outside, but you're really interested in this, and this just is piling up because you're like, hey, this is awesome. Let's go make this other deal to get this together, and then those networks can start working. Like your interest is completely somewhere else, not on money, getting more money. So the greed is like a weird concept because like almost like the greed kind of stops after you're outside this bubble, or like it shifts into something else. You're wanting something else. You want more like different results, and you want maybe like it just shifts. Some people are into like prestige and things like that. They want to buy like nice things, and that like that's how they start spending this money, because they say, well, I'm working. This is working. Everything is making me money. It's making me rich. Well, okay, I'll buy these nice things now. It's my I was born in this era, and there is a Rolls Royce, and I have all this pile of money. Let's combine this. Now I have a Rolls Royce. Now I look like a greedy bastard from the outside. I get it. But it's more complicated. And yeah, I think that people are, those rich guys, like Elon Musk is not into like, I want more money. He wants more control over things. He has some goals that he wants to reach. Like it's more goal oriented and things like that. Yeah. That was a long one.
Yeah, I'm still not satisfied, to be honest. Like I want to think more about greed and ambition in the way that Seneca's talking about, and see if maybe over the course of this year and we'll deepen our understanding on it.
Yeah, these are complex rabbit holes that you go down and it just...
There's a lot of like abstract nouns like greed or ambition or something that... we aren't stopping necessarily to take the time to define, at least like, you know, the quotes aren't doing, and then a lot of times in Ryan's commentary. And I find this in like self-help literature and philosophy a lot, is like this, I'm going to give you this noun, but I'm not going to give you a definition. And you've heard this noun thousands of times in your life, and you have an idea of what it means, but we're not going to align on that and make sure that we understand it correctly.
Yeah, that's but those books no one wants to read because they're so deep and they're 1,000 pages.
I mean,
but I get it. Yeah.
That's why half of what I'm talking about here is like, can we define what this is, please?
Yeah, and then there's also like, what is this really? This book, you know, like I feel like this book is like meant to kind of like, hey, give you the concept, and then go around today and something, and you're gonna walk and you're like, oh yeah, that was interesting.
Well, it has the journal companion, so like you're supposed to kind of contemplate on it. And honestly, these conversations, I feel like this book kind of requires conversation around it to really unpack some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we haven't formally invited you to, you know, put things in the comments, but please put your point of view in the comments, because we get some cool points of view in the comments sometimes, and it always like, I'm like, hey, that's like a really smart, succinct way, 2-minute video, ship it out. Instead we're like 25 minutes in, we're like, what are they talking about? Yeah, I say let's wrap it up.
Good one.
We'll be back tomorrow.